Guys, it's Jake again. Our boy. We did the castles coming up. I told you what we were gonna do. We were gonna build a nice V frame here, which we did. We're putting this beautiful lady, well, half beautiful, because the other half is a skull. You know, kind of this like beauty, death, dark theme. She's gonna be fitting right in between, you know, our two tops of the building. We got this reference over here, which was really fun to create. I mean, you know, you find a nice face that you like, you find a skull matching the angle of the face, you put it on top, and just kind of morph them into each other. We are going to be jumping on this one today. The shading is going to be very dark, you know, and have that kind of horror-esque theme. So you'll see me stray a little bit from the reference. I'm going to bump up the blacks a little on that left side, especially by the skull. But we're going to move bottom up and get as much done as we can today. Let's get into it. So we're a little bit into this piece. I'm starting to build it out. Let's talk about what we got so far. We have this triangle here. We have these streaks, and then these over here as well. So the outside is the robe, which is light, and the inside is the neck, which is dark. So what I'm doing, or what I did first, was I went in and I put the details. I started to separate some things. Now that I have those things in there, I'm separating the triangle from the sides, right? I'm separating the neck from the robe. So the robe's gonna remain light, and the neck's gonna continue to get darker. So like all this area in here, I'm gonna continue to go over to set it back, to set it behind the cloak. I'm gonna be eliminating all the skin tone. And you can see I kind of built out the skeletal system here. I got in some bones there. A lot of times, like with these bones sticking out, really the way to make them pop is to have black around them, if possible. So that's what I'm doing here. We're like on the cusp of the robe. So I'm using black, keeping it pretty simple. It's really like black mid-tone highlight, you know, so these bones are kind of popping out. It's a little easy to tell that they are there in front of the black. As it comes down the neck, I'll fade it out like I did here to kind of have that like morph effect. And really all I'm doing to give that effect is I'm like shading right into it and around it, and there's not necessarily like a hard stop. So just like I'm doing now, you know, I'm fading in, coming back out, fading in a little bit, coming back out. So it's hard to tell where the fade or the shading starts and ends. Where with the other ones, I'm gonna make it very obvious. You know, I'm gonna come in here, I'm gonna make a little dividing line. You know, I'll flick off from the outer part of these like vertebrae. So you can clearly see, you know, where it starts, where it ends. Right? So initially I just kind of took a few layers of the black to go over and just separate, almost like I'm sketching it in there. And now I'm going back and I'm really darkening it up. I'm putting in my permanent tones. I'm locking in tones. I'm adding values. And I'm definitely adding the black, you know? So I want to get rid of all this skin tone in here because we still are under the chin, you know, and in this reference, the light source is above the head. So everything under the chin is not really getting the best light. So I'm gonna not have that much skin tone. I'll still keep areas light, but I want to kind of push back most of the neck so that a lot of the attention is drawn to the face. So with the bones, I'm really just using the 3RL. you know, because I like to kind of do little details and add some texture points and stuff like that. Whereas some areas for me, it might just be better to use the mag. So you see me come through and do that there. Now with the neck, I'm just going to use the mag. Because really I just need to get rid of the negative space of the skin tone here. I don't need to do any crazy details. I just kind of need a big fade over the whole thing. So I don't have to use the 3RL. I don't need the accuracy of the 3RL for like the details. I just need something that's going to cover the entire thing. So I have like some shades in there, like on the side of the neck, a little point there. So I want to try to keep those intact. You know, so you might see me just run over the shades a little bit like this, just to remind myself that they're there. And then I'll take a gray wash and I'll go over everything. So this will keep those shades on the side, but it'll also make everything darker. And then I'll continue this pattern, so really like everything in this triangle shade I want darker. Alright guys, I wanted to show you something in this skull. So I'm starting to build up the skull, and skulls are really fun for me because a lot of it, you get to kind of make it up as you go. So you can see I have some textures down here, and I just have like some smooth shading here, right? So what I want to show you is kind of my process in building the skull. We're just going to work in this small area right here, this open skin. So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to hit the basic shades. So this is like the shades that are in my reference, you know, that I have stenciled out. And I'm going to get my basic shades in there so that my light source makes sense. Once I have those in there, my structure is formed. And when I have my structure, I can kind of make up little textures on top of that structure, and it's going to keep all my textures correct because the light source is already taken care of. So give me 1 second, let me get all my basic shades in here. So I'm just shading this, you know, as I would if it's, you know, normal realism kind of piece. Getting my little shadows in, cutting down the cheekbone here. Got my 3 standard out. Move a little quicker. So I'm working with like a lot of midtones in this section. I don't think I have anything, at least yet, that's like solid black. But it's almost like I'm just breaking down the area into its main shapes and then giving it a basic tone and just darkening certain spots like right here just to show a little depth, a little drop shadow on this like protruding cheekbone. Flick down from here, kind of make a more aggressive shadow because everything above this is pretty much skin tone. Cool, it's starting to look more how I want it. Flick up on the sides here and make it look a little rounded. Alright, so now I have my basic shades in. I kind of have a better idea of what's going on. I'm actually going to take a 7 liner. I start to make some texture points, really just for fun. And this is like where I'm just kind of making it up as I go. And since I'm going to do them on top of like the shadows that I've already created, they'll make sense. I don't have to pay attention as much to like light source. You know, I'm kind of just making these like little cracks. If I want to make it rounded, I can like flick up. You know, you can see some like texture in that bone. Make this a little bit darker here. But it's almost like I'm looking at making it look a little more aged, a little more like weathered. You can really show this in like the lighter spots. And it's almost like I'll come in there light with a lighter gray. You know, see if I like the texture point that I've created. And then I'll wipe it away. And then I might even come with a black and then just touch certain spots over the gray that I just put in. Which kind of makes it look deeper in certain parts of the crack, you know, like if I do it right here, right? You can repeat this. You can just keep building them up. So that's what I'm going to be doing, is I'm just going to be like attacking one small area at a time. You can see like I added a bunch of texture points down here. And like right now I'm working in the shadows, but you can really see this stuff going when you use a little bit of negative space, like over here, over here, over here. So I'll be continuing this throughout the piece. I'm going to be laying in, you know, my basic smooth shades and then be laying the texture on top of it. The last step will be going over everything, like I'll go over this, big shades like I always do. And then what that's doing is kind of getting this top area to pop a little bit more. But yeah, and this is why I like skulls. There's kind of like no rules with it. You know, it's like, okay, this thing's old, janky, it's got some cuts in it, some weathering, you know, and you can show that in a bunch of different ways. You know, with cracks, with shadows, with little indents. So I'm just going to be having fun creating those different things throughout the skull portion. And I think I'll lean into it a little more with this piece, because the other half's just the human face, which I'll keep a lot of that really smooth, and it'll be like a nice contrast. Like, oh, it's very obvious that that is the skull portion. So that's all those texture points, all those little things going on. And then, oh, that's very obvious that that is the human face because it's smooth, you know, it has almost no texture points. So these are just some things I'm thinking about when working with the two halves of the faces. So we'll check back in a little bit and we'll look at some of these continued textures. So we've come to the end of day one. This is as far as we got on the session. Got most of the bottom done. I knew we were a little short on time, so I wanted to get the major features in the face accomplished. I just gray lined out the top. So following up on this with the second session will be very easy. There will be no stenciling involved. I'll be able to see how some of this healed down here. We're gonna expect some added textures on the skull part of the face. The reason I didn't go too overboard in the textures is because they are a little time consuming, and I wanted to make sure we at least got enough of the face done so he could, everyone could tell what it is. He's gonna be walking around with this for a little bit. So this is our end of first session. We'll be completing it next session. See you next session. We are back in the shop on the second session with Jake. So we're focusing on textures. You can see it's healed. It's very nice. We're going to be hitting, some of the black spots again. We're going to be going through new textures. So you can see these healed up really nice. Like you can see some grit, some stuff going on the side here, wear away on the jaw. As it transitions into the face, it gets nice and smooth. You can also see the texture, even in the more basic which was intentional. I wanted to show some texture. I thought that would be cool, especially in combination, you know, with our castles. It's not as realism focused. This is always a decision when going into realism style artwork. Do I want this to be really smooth, or do I want it to be textured like this? Thought it'd be fun to just have it textured. We're gonna move into the top of the skull, which you can see on our reference over here is really smooth. You know, it's the skull and the lady face, but I'm gonna keep the entire thing smooth, and then we're gonna move into the hair. So we have all these textures going on. You know, we have bone, skin, some, you know, wearing away on the bone, our typical, you know, drop shadows and heavy shadows in there, our highlights, and then we're also gonna have hair texture and background. So you guys are gonna get a wide range with the final results of this piece. I'm gonna be starting on the back here, on the right, and I'm gonna make my way like a rainbow to finish. And I think I'm gonna come back in here a little bit, just like light. I wanna bring this down a little more, a little less skin tone. So it's been a great start to the day. Jake was not 45 minutes late, so I'm really happy about that. Let's get into it. Well, we're done. Let's take a look. We have, you know, face, skull, neck coming down. Looking pretty good. We got kind of a weird look going on right now because half of it is like pretty much healed. You know, the other half is fresh. You can obviously tell what it is, but we see some of the black is a little more accentuated that I went back into. So I am pretty excited to see when all this settles. Still looks really sick. Like I said before, we have all these textures going on, which I really like. I think the key though is to not make it look too busy, right? Because when you start adding all these textures, it can look busy. You know, we have that in the skull. We have smooth here with kind of the pepper shading texture there just to show off in the negative spaces. We have our bone textures down here into the smooth kind of hood, and then a really smooth light background. I kept the background really simple because we have so much going on here. You know, a lot of times in pieces I might look at the end like where I can add extra details or add things in the background. With this one I did not, because we had all the details going on. I was like, yo, I'm just gonna keep this simple. Now we're going to be moving on to the inside. Once we get the inside, I'll be able to connect on this strip and that strip. But yeah, we're going to call it a day on this one.